welcome to the Go Hard Chick podcast. Alicia, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. I hope it's a good one for you.
It is, and I'm really excited about today's conversation because we're going to get into employment, jobs, occupation again. Um, the Go Hard Chick listeners probably remember that in episode 133, I had on Dr. Kamani Norrington Sands, and we talked about liberating ourselves from toxic jobs. And part of the Go Hard Chick podcast, part of our mission here is to focus on the 8 pillars of wellness. And one of those pillars is occupational wellness. And I wanted to have you on because our work affects such a significant portion of our lives. And if we're not happy, if we're overly stressed out, we bring that home. We take that out on our families. We take that out on our bodies. We don't get sleep. We're stressed out. It affects us in so many ways. So I really am excited about having you here, so that we can dig a little deeper. Like, so what do we do once we realize we don't want that job anymore? What's next? So welcome to the Go Hard Chick podcast. I'm going to stop babbling, but please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. My name is Alisia Gill. I'm a chief people officer, also an economist. And so I kind of go at things a little differently. I right now focus my time on helping people who really understand that they need to make a career transition. I help them do that, but it's not enough to leave something and go somewhere else, right? From my perspective, and I hope, I'm proselytizing that, we don't just want a job or a career, right? We want the one that's right for us, right? Not just a job because you're lucky to get it because of the benefits and all this stuff, but the job that's right for you because you do have the ability to get a job that suits who you are, that will enable you to be fulfilled in what you do, that will give you meaning, and that will give you wellness. And I think many people just don't know how to get there. They experience the side effect of not getting there, but they're not getting there. And particularly when they're leaving toxicity, sometimes that can mask the fact that even if it wasn't toxic, that job still wasn't for you, which can make it hard when you're thinking about where you're going, because sometimes it could be, I don't care where I'm going, it's just not there. But, then you have a whole other host of problems potentially. And you still haven't given yourself that opportunity to live that work life that could be amazing and give you the life that you deserve and that everybody deserves.
I love that. I take notes during these. So if I'm looking down, I'm listening, but I'm writing some things. And one thing I wrote that you said that really resonated with me looking over my employment history. At one time, I did bop from, like, I would leave one job, oh, it's toxic. And I would go to another job, basically doing the same thing. And then it took me a minute to realize, like, that place may have been toxic, but that particular job, the work, wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if I'm honest and candid and looking back over that time, I felt trapped.
Yeah.
I felt like even though I may want to explore a different area of law, for example, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't think anybody would find value in who I was, what I already knew. So I think a lot of us feel a little trapped in a particular area. And so we just stay with what we know and we just kind of keep moving from firm to firm or company to company doing the same thing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is not an unfamiliar thing for people to feel or say. Some people don't even have the words to articulate it the way that you have. They just know that they don't feel like it's right. They can't even tell you why, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, I think people can get stuck into this whole notion of, well, I can do this thing and I got a degree in this thing. So clearly, the subset of things that I should look at are this. Even though none of those things really speak to me, but I did put all this energy in this and this and this. And so, and now you're thinking about, well, what are my peers doing? And maybe, they're doing better than me. And maybe I have to do similar things. And then you're really caught out there,
Mm-hmm.
right? What I say is, look, we all have a lot of skills and experiences. We can do a lot of things. That doesn't mean you should do them,
Yeah.
right? And there are all kinds of jobs that need the skills and experience you have, but every job is not for everybody, right? And sometimes people who care about us, people who love us, mentors, sponsors, all this stuff can look at you and say, oh, well, she's got, clearly she made the right decision when she chose that career and that degree. So maybe what she needs is a pep talk. Or, maybe what she needs is, just a little bit of guidance and, but she's fine and this and that. And it's not fine. And, you don't necessarily have the words to articulate it, but it's not a self esteem problem. You're
Mm-hmm.
just not where you're meant to be. And so, one of the things that I talk about is understanding what your personal north star is. Everybody has that north star that is unique to them, that encompasses all of the things, the requirements that they have to feel fulfilled, and that they're doing work that actually matters to them. And everybody should go about the business of figuring out what their North Star is so they can decide or understand how far away from it or how close to it they are. And they can have the satisfaction of knowing when they make choices that they are aligned with where they're meant to be or not. And there may be reasons why you verge left or right, but at least you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, when I work with people, it's really helping them understand what the components of that North Star are. It's the deep work that you need to do. One of the things that I discovered is that, the North Star, it's called Polaris. But one of the cool things is a lot of people think the North Star is the brightest star in the sky, but it's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the most important star for navigation, but it's not the bright star. And as we navigate, sometimes we can go to that sparkly, bright, sparkly thing. Oh, I should go that. That's hot. Everybody's talking about that. I got the skills to do that. I'm going to start and do that. Everybody's suggesting I do that. That thing pays a lot of money. That thing, I'm going to be able to da 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 da. That thing may be so far away from your North Star. It's unbelievable. So, you talked about moving from here to there to there. I wonder how much of that was Bright Star. I wonder how much of that was pressure from people outside who saying, girl, you should do blah, blah, blah. And you got to kind of go, well, I don't have an argument against it. So maybe I should do it. And then, maybe there isn't that work to say, minus toxicity, is that right? How do I feel? Because your gut isn't wrong most of the time. But sometimes the universe conspires against you trusting your gut. And it can feel like it's the wrong thing because maybe the thing you should do doesn't look like excellence to other people. But then when we reach the end of our lives, do we want to say, well, I please all the people? Or do we want to say, I was that person I was meant to be? I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
And the reason why I do this work, and I get chills when I talk to people who realize, this isn't it. I get chills because that's life changing. That is transformational. That's not just, well, let's just get a job with benefits. It's it's leaning into who you really are. And that feels fantastic, And so I can go into talking about, how do you go about defining, like, how do you do it? How, like, sort of defining what that is. But I
Yeah.
think that work that you do to define it for yourself means that every time an opportunity comes to you, you don't have to start all over again. Here are the pros and cons of it. What you can actually do is say, okay, let me dust off my North Star. Does it have this? No, not for me. Moving on. Because your North Star, for the most part, doesn't change. I mean, you learn things, and then when you learn, and things can change. But in general, most people's North Star and how they want to show up in the world and the things they want to do and the things they're interested in, there's a lot of consistency over time. There's a lot of consistency. Some of my clients will say, I always wanted to do X, but I was told that, I should do what? You're smart, right? You should get this degree. Now, I'm sitting here as somebody who has two Ivy League degrees. Now, I would look back and say, should I have gone to those schools? I don't know. I mean, I went there because I had a point to prove. I'm, black excellence, this and that, and all of that. And not that I didn't learn, and not that it wasn't a horrible experience, but if was it the best experience given who I am and what I need and what I prefer? I'm not sure about that. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
That that's my story too. I mean, I think that's a lot of our stories. I mean, I looking back, I chose law school because I was smart. And it was like back then, if you're smart, it's either law school or med school, maybe
For MBA.
engineering. Yeah,
MBA. That's
yeah,
the other one.
yeah, yes, yes. Or I mean, I knew people that did both, law school and
Right. That's
MBA,
right. The dual programs. Oh my God.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't. I knew then I didn't really want to do law, and I remember having a conversation with I when I was in college, I had an internship with a law school. I mean, excuse me, a law firm, and I didn't like any part of it. And I knew I don't want to do this. And I remember telling a friend of mine, and I said, I think I want to do something with art because I always loved art. And he said, "What? Like you're gonna let all of your brains go to waste?" That's what he said.
Wow.
So of course, I took some time off between college and law school. I got a job. I didn't like the job, and I thought I'll go to law school. And I didn't like law school, but I thought, "Oh, I'll take the bar. I don't have to practice law." But I took the bar and I passed the bar. Well, I might as well get a job. And here I am 25 years later, like, what the heck? But like you said, I listened to people. I did what I thought was expected of me. And I've struggled for the last 25 years with it. And I, even though I'm at a place now where I recognize there's freedom in choosing something different, and I'm trying to raise my daughter differently and let her know that there's options to
Mhm.
follow her North Star, as you say. I also I saw a guy on social media recently that said his kids had either, lawyer, no, I think he said doctor, or I think he lived in New York, work on Wall Street. That was the options for jobs for his children. And the person that was speaking to him said, "Well, what if they don't want to do that?" And he said, "It doesn't matter. Everybody hates their job. So if you're going to hate your job, you might as well do something that makes money." And I
Mhm.
thought, is he right?
I mean, look, we all have to make a living, so one of the components of the North Star, the definition is your needs. We all have needs. We have to live, but the answer for everybody isn't I have to maximize my earnings. You know, that is not the answer for everybody. For some people, it is like they want to have, the home with glass walls, and the crazy latest BMW and this and that. They want that, like that, and that's fine. But that's not most of us,
Hmm.
because some people just want, they want to have, they want to sit in their apartment with their dog, and they want to go on vacations here and there, and that's it. Because they don't want the trade off that comes with making that kind of money. Because another need that you have is your lifestyle needs, your family. Do you have, and is one of your needs to be an amazing mom? Is one of your needs to be able to go to every soccer practice? Is one of your needs to be able to spend quality time with your family? Because that has to take as much weighting in the decision as the salary. It can't just be salary and let's just forget about everything else, we'll just put up with it. There are four whole other categories of things that go into being a North Star, and we should not overweight money.
Okay.
People who have money, I mean, it's a trope now, but people who have money, will always say money doesn't make you happy. Most of them say that. They
Hmm.
say fame doesn't make you happy, money doesn't make you happy. You can do more things, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have all the other things that matter to you. Because when you reach the end of your career, what does it add up to that matters to you? Do you want to be able to say, I showed up in the world and made a lot of money? Is that what you want to say? I mean, you can, but I don't think that's most people.
Right.
And you
Right.
should interrogate whether or not that you're one of those people, so that you don't waste time going down rabbit holes and chasing dollar bills. And then at the end, you're just a person who chased dollar bills.
Yeah.
At the beginning of my career, I worked on Wall Street, and, I'm an economist. So that's what I was doing. But I observed that there it was about, people were chasing the money. It wasn't like you could even have necessarily a career. So people would move from bank to bank, and the traders would definitely move from bank to bank because they just only cared about money. When you're trading, that's all it is.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to just be chasing money. I want to have a career that is going to add up to something that's going to reflect my values and, what I like to show up and do, and with people that I want to be around in a culture that I prefer. I mean, the other part of the needs, right? You have financial lifestyle needs, you have your needs in terms, of your personal life, but there's also how do you want to relate to your work, right? There are some people, they just want to go to work and go home, right? They're not seeking friendships at work, right? That, it's 5 o'clock. Okay. Have a nice night, type. But some people, they want to work in a fun office. They want to go out for drinks. They want there to be free pizza. So if that's you, that's okay. But recognize that's you, because that's going to help you make decisions about where you should go, like what types of jobs you could take. And not all jobs offer that. And if it's important to you, it should certainly be a consideration when you're making decisions.
Yeah.
It might not be possible to do anymore, but when it presents itself, don't act like it doesn't matter to you, because it does. And that's okay, you
Hmm.
know? So I think, this whole thing of interrogating what your North Star is has to be absent what other people think. That's a trap. And it
Right.
can lead you down a path that's not particularly helpful. We're grown-ups, right? So we have to, make decisions for ourselves, and people just feel away. And you know what? People get over things.
Yeah.
And probably I would say our own satisfaction and feeling of fulfillment in terms of how we spend most of our time is probably more important than your friend who gives you the side eye and always says, I don't know why you turned that, that was kind of crazy because Ann stayed and Ann is now VP of the what's a
Mm,
whatever, you know what I mean? If
mm-hmm.
you know that you don't want Ann's lifestyle, then good for Ann,
Right.
you know? So
Yeah.
I think, I talk about people when you really have defined your North Star and have gone deep, you're confident in yourself. And the opinions of others matter less and less
Yeah.
once you've really understood and believe that it's about you. And I say it because not because I think it's an easy thing to do, but I think it's certainly the where people should get to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You said something that really, like, defining your needs. I've recently come to that realization, but I just called it. I remember having a conversation with a friend. Like, I know how I want my life to look. And so I seek opportunities and whether that be work or otherwise, that fits into how I want my life to look. So I think the needs thing, I like that because when I was a younger attorney, nobody was telling me, or I didn't hear too much talk about what are your needs? How do you want your life to look? It was like, I just knew I didn't like this. And I remember back then there were all these personality quizzes. Take this personality quiz, and this will tell you what kind of job you should do.
Oh my God, job inventories.
Right. But nobody was saying, how do you want your life to look? Like you said, like, some people don't want to work late and work nights and they want to do 9 to 5 and go home. Like there were there were no questions like that I recall.
You recall.
It was just like this personality, and it would have been so helpful. So I love that you're kind of encouraging people to first off, what are your needs?
Yeah. Well, then I think you're going to like the next one. The next one is what are your aspirations? And by aspiration, I don't mean what job do you ultimately want to have? That is not an aspiration. That's a job. And P.S., jobs change all the time. I was joking with somebody like Chat GPT prompt engineer is a job, right? You know what I mean? So
Mm,
that didn't even exist 2 years ago, So it can't just be the job. When I say aspiration, when we think about aspiration, it's about how do you want to show up in the world? What do you want to have done? Right?
mm,
So, an example of an aspiration that somebody could have is, I want to be somebody who helped the children in the community in which I lived. And I know their lives are different because of what I did with them.
mm-hmm,
Or I want to be able to create innovation in the way that people who have a specific kind of disability so they could improve the quality of their lives. That's what I want to do. Or I want to lead an organization because I want that organization to achieve such and such a mission. And if I could be part of that, even a little bit, then that's
mm-hmm,
meaningful to me. I want to be somebody who represents the people who don't have anyone to represent themselves. And I want to do that in rooms where my voice can matter and decisions I make matter to whole communities, maybe the world, right? That's what I'm talking about when I say aspiration. And then you can think about, I mean, in fact, you will have a job, right? But the question becomes, if when you look back at the jobs that you have had and you clearly define what your aspirations are, which are influenced by so many things that I go deep in, with my clients, you think about that. But you have to ask yourself, have the jobs you have had, are they on the path, to that component of your North Star? Or are they backwards? Are you going farther away from your North
mm-hmm.
Star for all the reasons that we discussed? But what do you aspire to be? That is the essence of who we are. We are here one time. And I'm a cancer survivor. I twice. And I tell people, look, I did not survive and fight cancer so I could be here and not move towards what I want and who I am.
Yes.
And it shouldn't take that to come to that realization. It's true now.
Hmm.
Everybody deserves to live the life that in many cases they dream of. And it's not even necessarily, I want to be happy. No, it's deeper than that because sometimes you won't be happy and it's still right. It's aligned with my sense of purpose and where how I want to be. So aspiration is a big one, right? And I see you
Hmm.
nodding because like it's like something to think about because people
Yeah.
don't talk like that. The other piece is values.
Hmm.
Sometimes people put that last because they'll be like, "Well, I'll just put up with whatever I'm at." You know what I mean?
Yeah, give me the check.
Yeah, yeah. Like, well, no. Now there are some people who are very principled. I don't want to write. I don't work for an organization that does not support blah blah blah. You know what I mean? They in so many cases they work for very mission oriented types of organizations. There are some people who don't care. They just want the paycheck. I don't, values, whatever. Companies suck anyway, and da da da.
Hmm.
It's. But you need to decide what are you willing to put up with, and what are requirements for you from a values perspective if you're going to take this job or have this kind of career,
Hmm.
right? So values are very important and we mustn't diminish their importance because that's the thing that can, even if you have the other things, that can leave you at night with that pit in the stomach to say, oh,
Hmm.
this isn't right. This isn't right. Or go and say, yeah, I'm so proud. I'm so proud to be part of this place because I believe this, this believes, they believe this. They're putting their money with their mouth is where their mouth is. I'm able to participate and da 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 da. But you need to figure out what that is for you. What values matter for you? So values are a thing. Interests are a thing. So sometimes people laugh at that. Well, I'm interested in. No, what are you actually interested in? What do you like? And a lot of people, like you're talking about law school, like, may I venture to say you weren't really interested in it. So, people should, you shouldn't put your interests last. And, this is one of those things. Well, it's a lot of money, so blah. But if you're not interested in it, then why are you doing it? Right? There are so many people who, when you ask them, and even you said this, like, they're interested in the arts in some way, but that's not consistent with excellence, unless you're, a famous painter or doing something like that, showed itself when you're very little, you're not allowed to explore that as an adult, right?
And we were told you're not going to make any money. You'll be a starving artist, which isn't necessarily true.
There are a lot of people making a lot of money in almost any category of job you can think about.
Hmm.
It's not a foregone conclusion. It's true, but there are lawyers who don't make a lot of money.
Hello, I know that now. I mean, I saw a video the other day. I hate to bring this up, but I'm sorry. This lawyer is on some TikTok and he's saying, I was a teacher for 25 years and I became a lawyer and I made my teacher's salary, like the most I made in 1 year as a teacher in a span of 3 months. And so I'm looking at the comment, well, 3 months as a lawyer.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at the comments, and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to law school. That's why I'm studying for the LSAT now, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you all don't know that that is not typical. Okay, number one. Number two, he didn't tell you how long it took him to get to that point. Number three, he didn't tell you how much he spent because it was a personal injury case, like how much money he had to put into that case to even get that kind of earnings. So there's so many factors that people don't know. So I'm getting off my soapbox, but I just say that to say all that glitters is not gold.
No, the bright, sparkly, shiny stars can lead you off a cliff on your
Hmm.
way there. as you're like, I'm just going to get there. And it's very true. It's funny because people are so focused at the end and they devalue everything like you're describing. What is your life like between now and the end?
Hmm.
Is it worth it to you to be working these crazy hours and all the things you do describe that many people don't mention? They just mention you got the job and you do the things da, 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 and then in the end you're happily making all this money. But it could be soul crushing, the things that happen between here and there.
Yeah, and
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 then
and that's the
so
thing that nobody said to me when I made the decision to become a lawyer. No one had those conversations with me. Now, when I, for example, when I speak to a young lady that wants to be a lawyer, I ask her, do you want children? Do you want a marriage? Ask yourself how this career will fit with that. Because I see, myself included, so many of us, we enter this career, we have children, and then we realize I might not have the time to even raise this child like I always dreamed.
yeah,
And then, so, you either sacrifice that aspect of being a mother or you pull back on the career.
that's
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But that goes back to really knowing what your needs and wants and desires, your values are.
that's right, because it's a big world and there are all kinds of jobs, some you've never heard of,
Hmm.
that could be you. And so the last one is, after the interests. And P.S., it's also true that, you don't have to have all your interests met in the job. You can find ways outside of your job to do it. You can do a volunteer work, you can be on
Hmm.
board, right? So I'm not suggesting that everything you're interested in should be encompassed in a job. But I certainly think the opposite should be explored. If this is something that you actually dislike, actively dislike, you need to ask yourself, why am I, somebody who loves myself, willing to put up with a job where I spent most of my time where I dislike what I am doing?
Right.
That's a question. Is there a certain dollar amount that would cause you to make that choice? And if so, just realize that that's the kind of person you are. And maybe you're fine with that. But
Yes.
at least know, bright eyed, open eyed. And the last piece is your strengths and your superpowers, right? What are those things that are uniquely you? You have a set of skills, you have a set of experiences, you have your own way of doing things. And they're the things that when you do them, you are in flow, right? That whole thing of like, I am doing this. I like this. What, 6 hours passed? Wow. I'm just going to do this a little longer. It's the thing that gives you joy. It's the thing that people who appreciate you see in you and say, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh really? You see me for that?" Yes, you're so amazing at this thing. Like you're such an idea person. We come to you, you always have an idea, or maybe you're somebody who's all about execution. It's like, oh, we know when we give you stuff, it's going to get done. Like and maybe you don't appreciate it because it's you, right? Everybody, you don't realize how special it is, but it's amazing if you're able to leverage your superpowers in your work,
Yeah.
because when you don't do it, it doesn't feel very good. Like it doesn't feel good not to be recognized for what's uniquely you and what you're bringing to the table. It certainly doesn't feel good to be micromanaged, because then you don't have the ability to leverage it in the way that you would prefer to leverage it based on how amazing you are,
Hmm.
you know and I also don't think it makes a lot of sense to put a lot of energy, because you picked this job that you were not that interested in but pays a lot of money and doesn't leverage your superpowers. It leverages these other things which you could learn, but those things are somebody else's superpowers. So while you're out here trying to train on how to be a better public speaker, what is not what you like to do, and you're not amazing at it, maybe you have to do it a little bit, but as you're putting energy in that, what you're not doing is leveraging your superpowers in ways that can help you, where it's possible to achieve the same goal,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to own, like, understand and own, this is what makes me special. This is what I want to bring to my work. And I know that nobody else can do it this way. And because I'm so happy doing this, people see that in me and they seek that out in me. So it becomes a
Mm-hmm.
virtuous circle.
Well, see, that's hard. I found that personally hard, identifying my superpowers. And I can't, I know you said, what do people maybe seek out from you? I don't know. Or maybe I do know. Um,
You should
and then
ask
I,
them.
well, that's the thing. I think there is a level of fear that if I ask them, it's going to be something that maybe I don't want to be my superpower. I don't know what it is.
Look, let's all stipulate to the fact that this is all about vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't anything I've said that isn't doesn't create some type of vulnerability when you're honest. So let's accept that vulnerability as we explore ourselves. But also, we live in a world. So let's also embrace or be open to, in our limited ways, right? You don't have to ask for candor, radical candor in all things. But as it relates to people who care about you and respect you and who have experienced you, if you ask them what, and tell them, like, I'm not asking you to be a cheerleader. Like, I just want to know, what do you think I uniquely bring? Like, when you think of me, what comes to mind? And I mean, I have a friend who is going for her coaching certification.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of her certification, she has to ask people in her lives that question. And the way that I answered the question was completely shocking to her. She had no idea that, in addition to being a good listener, which is true, it was deeper than that. She has
Mm-hmm.
an ability to synthesize what she says. She has an ability to communicate back to you what you've said, which then causes you to think a little bit differently about what you just said, and then makes certain things more obvious in ways that they didn't seem obvious to you before. That is a superpower. But if she hadn't asked me, she wouldn't have known. She probably would know, yeah, I'm a good listener. She probably know, yeah, people do come for me to advise. But she didn't really know what it was about that. And now that she knows that about herself, she can show up differently.
Mm-hmm.
And she can find situations where, you know what, I know I can add value here. So it is worth us exploring what our superpowers are, and be proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
Be proud of them. Tell people what they are. So, for example, I had gone to an event. It was like this top talent event, so people over the world, and we were there. And there comes a moment where you have to introduce yourself, right? So I said, I could stand up here and say, I'm Alicia, and I work in such and such department, and I do such and such. I could say that, but that's not super helpful in people understanding who I am unless I happen to meet them at a happy hour or I'm paired with them at some point. Otherwise, this whole group of people, I'm not going to get to know. So I did say who I am and where I work. I mean, I do have to say that. But I basically said what my North Star is. I mean, I didn't use that language. I didn't start I didn't start calling it that, but I believed it at that point. I just wasn't calling it that. 2 weeks after that summit or retreat, whatever the heck we want to call that thing, I received a one sentence email, and it said, "What do you think about joining our group?" first of all, I don't even know who this was. And what in the world group are you even talking about? And what it was the company was creating this internal crack group of people that were consultants that were going to provide data based consultancy support to improve performance. And my North Star was was exactly the kind of person they were looking for. If this job had been posting, I wouldn't have posted. I would not have applied for it because I'm not a consultant. So I wouldn't have applied. But even if I applied, I would have said consultancy things that I think you need to say for an interview, and I wouldn't have gotten the job. It's only because I shared what my North Star was that this person who I didn't even know or meet could say, yeah, Alicia could come here and she would be amazing. And I was. And that was one of the best jobs I had in my whole life, my whole career. So there are, if you're willing to be vulnerable and willing to express, the universe can conspire to give you exactly what you want. And that is amazing when that happens. But if you don't explore and you don't say and you don't know, then you're missing out on that. And that to me is a real shame.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I got to be vulnerable and not be afraid of, I guess, what the. I don't know why I would be afraid. Um, I don't know. It's just weird. Maybe because I think what I think are my strengths, other people may not think the same. I don't know.
And so what? You know what I mean? They may say to you, you are really good at, when there's conflict, when you show up, you're able to just like everybody kind of just relaxes and we just kind of go, everyone is now ready to get to consensus because of your energy or something like that. And you're like, I don't know, I just walk in rooms and people get it organized. I don't know, because you don't know it's a superpower. But once you know it, like it's like, wow. So you can now marry that, what they see in you with what you saw in yourself and kind of see how it's all hanging together, particularly if you ask multiple people and they're saying the same thing.
That made me think. Like recently, I was visiting with my mom and my daughter. My daughter asks a whole lot of questions, and she was
Then that's a good
asking.
mama.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what she asked my mom, but maybe it was something like similar to what you're saying. Like, what do you think my mom is good at, or something? And my mom said to her, and I could overhear the conversation. She said, "Your mom always, well, how did she put it? She goes after what she wants. She goes after what she wants and she gets it." And I was like, what? And I've never heard my mom describe me in that way. So it was quite shocking. But I, I don't know. I never thought of it in a way of maybe that's a strength, I guess. And how do I parlay that strength into something, you know?
Yeah, well, that is a superpower because think of people who are the opposite. They just, they're not. I mean, it's a way of saying, you are somebody who executes. You get it done. There are some people who they're not about getting it done. They're about thinking about it. They're about inspiring other people. They're about other things, but not about making sure they get it done. Now, it's also true that you can overplay a superpower, right? So, for example, if you pick the wrong job, or profession, you're going to get it done and you're going to get that profession. So it's like, whoa, right? So you can
Yes,
be dangerous because you got to pick the right thing. So
right.
you have to be dangerous because you will arrive at the place you wanted to arrive. You know what I mean? But wow, that is really something to know. But also, now that you know that, You need to be like, okay, let me be sure I want that thing because I will get it. So let me be sure if I think about all the other elements of my North Star, am I in alignment? Okay, then let's go for that thing. And I have the confidence to know I'm going to achieve it because historically I always have. And nothing has changed. I am still the same person. And you probably were doing that in second grade
Right.
because a lot of these superpowers were present in you and they only grew from the
Right.
very beginning, you know? It's funny, there are some people who, because I was a chief people officer, I ran HR. I want to be promoted to an executive and I want to have opportunities, blah, 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 blah. And I would say, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Mm.
Because when you say opportunity, what does that mean? For some people, opportunity means more money. For some people, it means a different title. For some people, it means they get to work on high profile projects. For some people, it means, right, like it can mean so many different things. And you might not care about any of those things except for one. Also, the higher up you go, if you want to take that kind of managerial executive track, is that who you are? Because my experience of you is you don't like to delegate. And if you don't know how to delegate, you won't be happy doing that. And the people who report to you will be miserable.
Right.
But you'll be able to say, I got VP of such and such. You'll be a very unhappy VP of such and such. And just because you're VP of such and such doesn't mean you're a leader if nobody wants to follow you because you're making them crazy. Because why? You're not letting them, because of insecurities and other things that are behind your not being able to delegate, you are not enabling them to express their superpowers. And talented people aren't going to put up with that. And you're not going to be able to execute and show up at the best that you can.
Mm-hmm.
So, we need to get out of this. I want an opportunity. What do you want for yourself given who you are? If you have, if you look back in elementary school and high school and college, if you have never done anything in a leadership capacity, I don't know why you think that just because you got this degree, all of a sudden you are going to be able to be this amazing leader. Now, maybe you can be a leader in the sense that you're leveraging your superpower in a very unique kind of a way. There are all kinds of leaders, but leaders, as we all know, are not necessarily the people with the title. Sometimes the most powerful
Mm-hmm.
person in the room is the executive assistant,
Yeah.
you know? So it's very, very important to not get caught up in the job. I like to talk about what do you want to show up and do?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can figure out, okay, well, what careers are consistent with that? And now we're running. Now we have the right scope and we can just whittle it down and filter it down from there. But we just, these notions of excellence and, go for opportunity and this and that, I think they're very external oriented
Mm-hmm.
and success, right? It's
Right.
what is society saying about you if you do the things.
Right.
And it's possible that those things align with your North Star. And if so, good for you. But I don't know that that's most people.
And being honest about that with ourselves, I think, is can be hard sometimes.
It can be totally scary.
Yeah.
It can be totally scary. So you talked about, there are a lot of things that are hard about this. You talked about vulnerability being hard, being honest about the kind of parent you want to be, and forcing yourself to really understand that if I pick this is not going to be possible or not. I'm not going to do it well, even though I'm going to try and I'm going to be stressed that I tried and I'm not going to achieve and you have anxiety about not having achieved. And, I could have done something else. Like it turns into this whole thing. So I think that in order to achieve it, I definitely agree your point about raising vulnerability, like, and even your body energy changed when you said the word, by the way, vulnerability. You know, once you can embrace vulnerability because of all the upsides to being willing to be vulnerable, that's going to help you. And also learning to be confident and not fearful of judgment of what the world might say to you. Sometimes they literally are saying it to you, but
Oh, yeah.
also your notions of what you think society believes about the thing, which you could have totally wrong.
Yeah.
You know, you could have, gotten this degree in engineering and everybody said, oh, that's so great for you, da da da. Not realizing that if you go later to your aunt and say, I really wanted to play the piano, she's like, oh, I always wondered why you didn't do that, but you seemed interested in engineering, so we all supported you. What? You know what I mean? So we have to be fearless, and sometimes you realize that there actually wasn't a reason to be fearless, and now
Right.
what you've actually gotten is support and almost like approval. I mean, live your life looking for approval, but it can help if you get approval for or support around achieving your North Star. It doesn't get better than that. I
Right.
Ever since I came to the North Star concept, there isn't a job I've had that is not aligned to it. I will not do a job, or the careers I pick are all of them are aligned to my North Star. Can you get every component in every job all the time? No. But if you only get one, then you have to interrogate why you're willing to give up all the other things. Or at least if you're not on a path to getting the things, even if you don't have it right now, that's what we all should be interrogating so that we're not sitting here saying, I'm unhappy now. I did this, that, and that. I wasn't unhappy. And here as I sit, I know I need to leave, not least because Jane is making me bananas. Uh, but even still, I don't know where to go. And I don't know that anywhere I go is going to be make me feel any differently than any of the other things I did.
Yeah.
And they can feel very unmoored. That's what my clients say to me. I ask them, how do you feel about not, they feel, words they use, confusion, anxious, concerned, unfulfilled, unwell. I've got clients who are physically ill
Yes.
behind this. And my goodness, if we are doing jobs that are literally making us sick, mentally and physically, and we stick with it because what? Um, that's a choice,
Yeah.
but I don't know that it's a good one. But everyone does whatever they want, right?
Right.
We're all grown ups, but I also believe in being reality based and giving yourself the opportunity to dig deep so that you can get at least closer to your North Star, because you're going to get closer to being able to live a life that's more in concert with who you are as a person.
I was gonna try to wrap it up, but that just reminded me of sometimes I used to practice family law for many years, and I left. I never liked it. I'm gonna just be honest.
Okay.
Because I did it for a number of years, it seems like I couldn't escape it. I just I don't I could go into all the reasons why, but because I practiced it for so long, I became pretty good at it. And
Mm-hmm.
it got to the point where people wanted me. I don't know how this happened, but I developed this reputation as being this kind of lawyer. You want Crystal, she's gonna. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to show here. Like, that's not the image I'm trying. Who told you this? Um, Anywho, I left at a time where I could have become a partner. I could have really taken that, everything I had learned and the reputation I had built, and really done something with that. But it kept me up at night. It made me ill. It made me ill. So I left and went to a different practice area. And since that time, I struggled with, did I make the right decision? Even though I didn't like it, I was good at it. And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. We were good at that thing. We didn't
Hmm.
like it so much, but we were good at it. And I left in 2021, and I took a complete break from family law for about a year or two, a year and a half. Then people still call me. And so then I said, okay, as long as it's low conflict, I'll take a little bit here and there. But now I'm at the point where I'm finally like, I'm done, and I release that. And I do not want to do it again. There's no part of me. But I guess I brought that up to say is that sometimes it's very hard to walk away from a thing that we have been told we're good at, maybe.
Well, think of how we started. I think you have to make two commitments. You shouldn't make a choice just because you can do it. You can do it. You may be the best at it, but if it's not aligned with who you are, then that's an easy no. Or it could be. If we're willing to trust ourselves and say no, because you were great at family law. I'm sure there are other disciplines within law that are adjacent to that you would probably be amazing at too. You're great. In this feedback that you got from your mom about you get her done, you'll get her done in whatever you point yourself at. But if you step back, right, you you can do it. You don't want to do it. You're not interested in it. Your superpowers support it, but it doesn't meet the other criteria.
Right.
And so, no matter what other people say, because that was my second commitment, you do what you want to do without undue influence of other people who are well meaning and willing to throw money and title at you. But you know, you declaratively said, I don't like family law. And that's enough reason. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says.
Yeah.
If you really believe that, and it sounds like you do.
Yeah.
And I think, the earlier you can come to that decision, it's better. Like, imagine if you kept going up and up and up, the golden handcuffs, right? Now it becomes really hard to walk away. You've
Right.
been doing family law and crushing it for 25 years. How can you walk away from that?
Right.
And I mean, not that you can't, like, it's never too late, but it's harder and it
Mm-hmm.
requires more strength on your, like, emotional strength, and it
Mm-hmm.
requires serious changes in your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It requires thinking about how you make that kind of pivot in the workplace, because now it's not going to be, you're going to have to get a little creative so that people can understand how the skill set that you have can be brought to bear in other um, areas where you could also crush it. So it just becomes a little bit more complicated, not impossible. But that whole notion of knowing it isn't feeling right, I use this North construct so that you can pick what specifically is the thing, so that you don't go ahead and do that thing again.
Yeah.
You don't find another version of family law that you're amazing at, that everybody compliments you on, that you get promoted on. Like, it'll happen again. And because you're so talented, that's what's so hard about my client. They're so talented that it becomes so hard to just, silence the noise and say, what do I want? What do I want? It's me, it's my life. And people love me. If they love me, they'll support me no matter what I do.
Right.
If they're I told you so people, then maybe that tells you something about your relationship,
Yeah.
which maybe you're scared to find out too.
That's
But
true.
but you got to make choices. You can continue to make them happy and your North Star is here and do that, or you can move toward it and help the universe take you to where you want to go. Because if you don't tell the universe, if you don't tell people, they can't help you. I remember
Right.
there's one woman who, she was really upset because, she wasn't being valued, this and that. I said, why? She's like, because I don't get put on global projects. Yeah, I want to try. You want to travel? That's it. We went to the manager and said, Jane wants to travel. She's like, okay, we'll put on this project. That's all. You just had to. What? All you had to do was kind of say it.
Right.
So when people know, when they're in rooms that you're not in, they have the ability to remember, like, oh yeah, she said this. Why don't we figure out whatever? Otherwise, they're just moving pieces on the board. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
tell them. And P.S., that is a version of leadership because leaders, the good ones, are clear about what they're good at and what they're not,
Mm-hmm.
and what they want and what they don't. So if you show up and say, look, I'm this, 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 and I'm less interested in that, they'll respect that because they'll see themselves in that. Versus
Yeah.
everybody else who's like, okay, you know what I mean? You'll stand out
Mm-hmm.
because you're self-aware and you have confidence. And why wouldn't you as a leader want somebody like that on your team?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Oh, but I got to be respectful of your time. I could go on and on.
Yeah, well, look, this is my yeah, I've come this is my North Star. I've really come to the conclusion that this is really my life's work. And, even as I see you kind of like working through some of these concepts, I get goosebumps because I all I want to do is see people win.
Yeah.
And they deserve to win in this one life that they've got.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even though I hate to have you go, but I definitely need to bring you back on. But before before we wrap it up, Alicia, tell the listeners how they can learn more about you. Maybe they need your coaching. How can they how can they
Yeah.
learn more?
Well, I just started up a YouTube channel, so they can find me there. Shocker, the name of it is I am the North Star Lady.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the name, and I guess the title of the channel is Follow Your North Star. But I am the North Star Lady is kind of how you'll find me. I'm also on LinkedIn. So DM me on LinkedIn and just say, I saw you on the podcast, so that I know. I also have, and I'll give you the link for this. I have a quiz for people to really assess how fulfilled they really are in their career.
Mm.
So it's a career fulfillment quiz. It's like, it takes 2 minutes, but it can either validate or identify places where you are or aren't fulfilled in your work so that you can start along the path of doing something about it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then lastly, and I'll also give you the link for this, I have a program called Career True to You. And so in less than 60 days, we go deep on the concepts that we touched on here so that you have your North Star defined and you will use that as a tool to not waste time on careers and jobs that are not suited for you
Mm.
and to lean in on and start exploring jobs that totally are,
Mm-hmm.
even if you've never heard of them before. And all of the things that are part of a good job search, which is networking and things like that. You talk to them about your North Star, and then they kind of go, "Oh, that's this job." And oh, really? You know what I mean? So that's what my coaching is about. It's not therapy. It's not let's coach every Thursday for 5 years because Jane said something to me and I want to figure out how in the next meeting. I mean, there is a place for that kind of coaching, but that's not what I'm doing. And I have found that there are people who have done that kind of coaching when in reality, they're looking for what I'm talking about and what you're
Right.
talking about, which is How do I do the thing that's right for me confidently? That's what I'm on about. So, I don't have a ton of spots, but I want to help as many people as possible. So it's the Career True to Me program, and I will give you the link and happy to speak to people who are seriously ready to make this investment in themselves in less than 60 days
Great. Great.
versus
And
reading this
I will,
book, watching this YouTube video, and time is going by and, they're still in the same spot somehow.
exactly. And I will, listeners, that the links will be in the show notes. So make sure you check it out. And it will also be in our biweekly email. Thank you so much, Alicia. This was great.
Thank you for having me.